Okay, let's get it through Imperials. Let's get through this. So, we'll we won't go through all the changes because I think we'll skip some of the season 1 changes, but I'll just go quickly through it. BT1 at 5. People have said it feels good. I've heard people putting up success with him. Seems fine. Elite Stormtroopers 7 and 3, just like the Rebel Troopers. We've seen people playing them. Like you said, I think there's an issue of scoring 9 victory points from them when they get killed. So I'm sure you guys are looking into that. Elite Sentries, I want to talk about real quick. 9 and 5. Why are you guys afraid of Elite Sentries? Because I feel like they could be an 8-point group.
It's not necessarily that we're afraid of them being an 8-point group. I think where we're at right now is that we're not for sure how a 3-die attacking trooper should fit. A natural 3-die attacking trooper should fit within the Imperial meta. We felt like reducing their costs by 1 helps them fit into list. We got some feedback about how now that they could fit a little bit better, players were happy to use them, but they're still just kind of on the cusp of being competitive. And so I'm not for sure if dropping them to 8-4 is a good enough, is too much of a change in that direction. It'll make them too good, or if it's okay. In either way, that was one of the deployments that we felt like this is a pretty simple answer to help them, and it did help them. I just don't think it's 100% there yet.
Okay, a good answer. Let's see. And then we've got, like you mentioned, the probe droids were good at 4. Quiz down to 7 from 9. I've heard people have liked him at 7. And that feels about right. I don't think you can go lower than that with him. Royal Guard Champion down to 11.
This was a Season 2 change. Yep.
Nice. So let's talk about him real quick. I actually don't know anything about Royal Guard Champion, so what do you want to say about him?
This is another one of those iconic figures just within the skirmish committee, and like really diehard Star Wars fans, like those who are familiar with like Connor Jax and some of the other lore around the Imperial Guards that came out in like comic books and novels and stuff. We elected to drop him just to 11 because we felt like his overall power and abilities were really good, but we weren't completely for sure how his black-white defense would work within the Imperial construct, because you're not just looking at him rolling black-white and potentially just dodging out of stuff. You're looking at him rolling black-white and also having Zillow, and also having Thrawn, and also potentially having Royal Guards giving him, getting in the way and stuff like that. So we wanted to try him at 11. We've gotten a little bit of feedback where folks are saying, the defense, black-white defense, it looks tough, but it really isn't. It's the same kind of issue with Chewbacca, I feel, where, Chewie changing his dodge to an evade just really doesn't help him want to get into the fray at all. His Chewie's defense abilities are just a slightly better than Garkon with a static +1 block.
Sometimes a lot worse.
And sometimes a lot worse. So that's, we were hesitant with the Royal Guard Champion at 11. We've gotten enough feedback now that we feel pretty comfortable asking folks, should we drop him to 10? And if we drop him to 10, how does that look? And so that may be a change later on in the season to try. And then at 10, we'll evaluate whether or not he can be kind of a mini Vader at that point. But he's got excellent speed. He's got He's got the vengeance ability to move and attack when a figure is defeated near him. He rolls red, green, yellow, and has decent surges off of that. He can be a pretty strong card.
Yeah, and I think he feels pretty different from Vader. And just he's a lot speedier and a little more fragile. And he still has the brutality. And he's definitely a fan favorite, like you said. The community really loves him. And he's kind of like unique to Imperial Assault. He's not in really any of the other Star Wars games they make. He's not even in X-Wing anymore. They took him out. So it's a nice. I just like seeing him on the table. So that's awesome. Okay, ATST. Let's talk about that. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let's talk about. I skipped one. Kane.
Kane, yes.
Let's talk about Kane Somos real quick. He was an all-star from season 1 because you guys dropped him to 6, which enabled a lot of shenanigans with Death Troopers and what was it? What's that command card that lets you chain activations?
Strength in numbers.
Strength in numbers, yes. So you and I talked about having him at 7 to avoid that, but bringing advanced comm systems down to 0.
Yes. Now is the time to take your victory lap because we listen to you.
I smart.
Seriously though, that was a brilliant solution that you gave us. I mean, and this is part of the reason why we do reach out to the community and listen, because sometimes there's just good ideas. We wouldn't normally take a skirmish upgrade attachment and make it cost 0, because that basically means you're always taking it. Just like for Rebel Uniques, you're always taking heroic effort, even if you completely forget to use it, right? Because it's always there. The thing with advanced comm systems is it's so limited in who it affects that it's okay to drop it to 0, and then those 3 or 4 deployment cards that it affects, we can just carefully monitor and make sure that advanced comms can be attached to it. And honestly, with advanced comms at 0, that creates an interesting play to use with the elite Imperial officer, because now you're extending the range of his executive order ability to trigger an attack out of activation order.
Yep. And the only thing that you would take it on, other than the weak figures already, like Soren, is like a regular officer. And it's unique. So, yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep.
All right. So that was great. Let's talk about ATST, and then we'll talk about the new card you guys made. So ATST down to 11, used to be 14. Still has awkward. Still doesn't have assault. But you guys created a new card for it, which is Imperial Retrofitting. Which is a unique upgrade. It's basically Beast Tamer for machines, so beast machines, I guess.
Machine Tamer.
Right, but it's like 10 times better because you get a block token, or you can choose to gain assault, or you can, and in addition to those things, in one round you can deplete it to become focused. But it only works for massive vehicles. You can't use it on jets, which is very good that you guys did that. Yeah, this card is super strong. We had a guy at the tournament playing with an ATDP, and he was doing some work. So I think. What do you think about ATST real quick versus ATDP?
Well, the ATST change was one of those things where we kind of evaluate everything and try to go the least. We want to be as minimally invasive as possible. You know, with Garcon, with Finn, those things just going to have to get complete reworks. With the ATST, we knew we were going to have to make some sort of change. We wanted to try a Beast Tamer like solution for Imperial massive vehicles, because the ADDP was strong. Depending on what map you're on, the ADDP can be strong, but like out of like the 9 or 10 maps that have been in tournament rotation, the ADDP is strong on like 3 of them. Yeah. And so the odds are is that you're going to be playing, you know, the ADDP on a map that it's not built for. So we wanted to create a beast tamer like card to kind of give those massive vehicles the ability to get into position, to be able to take shots, and put some value out on the board. So when we took a look at the ATST and what it needed and what we were going to give it with Imperial retrofitting, we just felt like reducing the cost down to 11 was a good start. The feedback that we've gotten right now has been, why play the ATST at 11 when you can have the ADDP at 9? And because with Imperial retrofitting giving that extra block token, the defensive profile between the ATST and its 2 black dice and the ADDP with its one black die and a static +1 really isn't that much different.
Yeah, and I'll say that the way you came up with the solution for this, where the retrofitting card, has less benefits for the DP than the ST, because since the DP already has assault, so it doesn't benefit from that at all. And then the focus, being able to deplete for focus is much more useful on the ST, because it's only getting 1 attack, or if it's moving into position. Yeah, I think the ST is pretty good. I think 11's pretty good for it. I would not want to face like a 9-point ATST with retrofitting. So I'm looking forward to seeing some vehicle lists. We're already seeing them popping up in our local community. So
cool. I will say that we've gotten some feedback that we're a little concerned that this Imperial retrofitting is making the ATDP just the default selection. And so that's where what we're kind of looking at now is, how do we differentiate the ATST? Why would somebody want to choose the ATST over the DP? And there may be something that we try either this season or in a future season to try to get that separation to work, where yes, I am paying a little bit more for the ATST, but I am also getting more because it's doing this, and this. And then I'll go ahead and transition to General Weiss, if you don't mind.
yeah.
We did make a text change to his card, where his General's Orders ability is no longer a special action. It is now a start of the activation ability, because special actions for a massive vehicle is just a waste of a massive vehicle. The feedback that we've gotten about it is, the General Orders ability is nice, but it's not 2 points better than the ATST, and it's not 4 points better than just putting an ATDP down on the board and running 2 other officers.
Interesting.
So just by stats itself, General Weiss has a little bit less damage profile than the ATST, just by nature of its abilities. The Epic Arsenal doesn't do as much as you would think with it. And so this is another case of, okay, we want people to be able to pick General Weiss. If he's going to be as expensive as Vader, then he needs to be able to affect the game as much as Vader.
Yeah.
And so this is another one of those things where either this season or maybe in a future season we're going to take another stab at him.
Nice. All right, and then let's see. I think the last thing to talk about for Imperials is going to be the trooper upgrades. So let's talk about, I think they're both actually neutral upgrades, so they're not faction locked. So let's talk about Cohesive Fire Team first. So for non-unique troopers, when they resolve a ranged attack, if it did not miss, the target suffers 1 damage if they didn't suffer any damage. Then you can exhaust it when it declares a ranged attack. If another figure has line of sight to the target, apply +1 damage to attack results. So nice, kind of a way to up the damage, right? Like you get you get ups on your damage floor, so the minimum amount of damage you do to a target, and then you can spike some damage otherwise. So, but you can't do both, right? I don't think you can.
No,
Yeah,
you can. Yeah. Well, you would be able to add the +1 to your attack results, but if the target did not suffer any damage, then the target's not suffering 2 damage; it's just suffering 1 damage.
right. So you could do that on 2 attacks from the same group in 1 activation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really nice because troopers kind of struggle against stuff like Vader
Mm-hmm.
and IG, or like ATSTs. With anything that has multiple defense dice, a trooper can sometimes whiff. So kind of
Or
similar.
even like any sort of like static defense. All of the, especially the 3-figure trooper developments or deployments, all of them, if they face any sort of static defense, their odds of doing at least 1 damage drop significantly.
Yeah, exactly. So this is nice. 1 point upgrade. I like these attachment upgrades since you don't have to change the text on the card.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten any feedback from people playing this card? I haven't seen it in the wild.
Not yet. Everybody's been a little bit more crazy about the other card.
Yeah.
I will say this. We designed, specifically, I designed this card as a potential to use for regular trooper units. That would put them at the same as elites, the same cost at elites, because you would be putting like a 6 cost or 5 cost regular deployment card on the table, and then increasing it by 1. But then your VP costs go down by 1. And I haven't seen anybody try that yet, and that's what I would like to see, because if you could put, say 2 regular groups of stormtroopers, or even 1. You put 1 regular group of stormtroopers on the board, and they're essentially cannon fodder, but if they don't get shot, somebody's taking at least 1 damage per shot. That's not terrible.
I had not thought of that. That is really interesting. I mean, you're losing health, but you're giving up less victory points, and you can run 2 of these since they're not unique.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler. Running 2 of these since they're not unique, so you could have like 2 regular stormtroopers with these attached to each of them at 7 points instead of taking the elites. And elites die in 1 shot anyway to a lot of figures, so yeah, that's really interesting. I might try that out. Okay, so that's a cool card. Let's talk about the last one, Suppressive Fire. Troopers or heavies, and it's not restricted to size, so you could put this on your ATST.
Yep.
Exhaust after you resolve a ranged attack. If it did not miss, target suffers a strain and becomes weakened. Then you can choose another small friendly figure within 3 spaces, and it gets to move 2 movement points. So also not faction restricted and not unique, so you could have 2 figures with this. People have been playing this, doing well with it.
Yes. They have been using it on unique troopers like Finn. They've been using it on like elite Alliance Rangers, and have been finding a lot of success with it, especially when it comes to moving like the Alliance Rangers into position to attack the same target. And we haven't heard much about whether or not it is overpowered. That's the only concern that I have personally, is that the 1 strain and weakened is a little bit too much. I like the idea that it makes the target suffer a strain. I like the idea that it makes it weakened so that you can set up attacks. I think making a target weakened with a trooper group enables the rest of that trooper group to do something to it. Obviously attaching it to like an ADDP will help set up the ADDP attacks later in the round, because you're going to have PALP with that ADDP, or an elite officer or somebody that will grant an extra attack. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do with it. And so right now all the remarks have been very high.
Nice. All right, sweet. So I think that is all the changes for Empire. The only thing I have to say about Empire is, have you guys considered increasing the cost of Zillow Technique?
Well, that is a conversation for another day.
Okay.
But right now we're kind of staying the course with how the game is as we know it. Um, However, there has been discussions that have started. Daniel has started those discussions on the Fantasy Flight forums, and it's something that I'm going to bring up in the Zion Finest Slack about what would it look like if we changed the whole Gideon R2 thing,
Well,
right?
that's another faction that we'll get into in just a second.
Right. And so, but it's all just discussion right now. I think most of our players are pretty happy with what we're doing. I don't think Imperial players want us to change Zillow just
Sure.
yet.
Why would they?
But like I said, we want to, whatever we're doing, we want to make the game fun, fresh, and worthy of everybody's time. And so if you have Zillow, I wouldn't worry about it right now. And but I would definitely start looking for those conversations that we're having because they're pretty interesting conversations.
Yes. Because Empire kind of just feels like a 39-point faction, but they're
A
also
38-point faction, really, because you're also going to run Rule by Fear.
well. People have been talking about that one, but we'll save that one for the Slack channel.
Yeah.
All right. Scum. I think Scum had the least number of changes out of everything, and they've been doing the best in like official FFG sanctioned tournaments, so that makes sense. No season 2 changes. You guys still have the Elite Gamos down to 7 from 8, Rancor down to 9 from 10, Shyla down to 7 from 8, Maul down to 6 from 7, and the Wing Guards down to 7. I think Shyla's been doing really good. I think Rancor still struggles with just being a massive figure with only one defense dice with no reroll, or it has 2 but it can't reroll, and it's a little squishier than it should be. Gamorreans, I think, have been doing well outside of IACP, so I'm sure they're doing fine with their points reduction. And I think Maul and Wingard I've heard not great things about.
Maul finally fit into some lists as a finisher. That's where I saw the most success for him. Where you're sacrificing somebody for that Maul finisher. You're building more around that brawler archetype. And so I saw some real success with Maul coming in late in like round 2 and late in round 3 or middle of round 3 and finishing off figures that have been weakened by Gamorrean guards or someone else. But I think he's not like a competition level finisher yet because he's still a melee character and he kind of suffers from all the problems that he has as a melee character, and he kind of suffers from being the only mercenary force user and not having any specialized mercenary force user cards.
Yep, and he's not like Onar where you're just gonna shove him into a 6-point hole because he's just all around good. He's a figure you kind of have to build around, and you have to create a niche for him to fit into. But he can be a fun figure when you do.
Right, and there's been some more movement on a lot of these creature brawler lists, especially this season with the Nexu changes. And of course, the Lothcats are little cruise missiles of death. If you get one of those focused and near something, it's going to hurt. And pairing those up with Maul, I've seen some success with too.
Yep, and I've been playing Maul in season 1 because I love Shyla so much. And Shyla's really great. Her whip is awesome, and she has a lot of tricks with different command cards. So I was happy to see her lowered to 7 because it helps me fit in Punishing Blow into my lists, which is a different video for a different time. And then let's talk about the Nexu. Elite Nexu got a errata, basically just a static +1 damage, I think, and is that it?
+1 health.
Oh, he has extra. He went from 8 to 9 health. Okay, so that's cool. He just a little boost to his damage profile.
Mm-hmm.
Again, making corset figures better is nice. So,
And I've seen a game with Nexu with Beast Tamer and an elite set of Lothcats to give evade tokens to the Nexu. I've seen that rush a list that DT was playing, and I played against it this week, and they are brutal. They once they get near something, things are going to hurt. They may not necessarily get out alive, but you can, if you time the dive in correctly, you're going to get 2 attacks with bleed and cleave 2 no matter what.
yep.
And both of those attacks, even if one of them isn't focused, is going to do some significant damage. So I really like the change of these guys.
Yep, and I like seeing traits in Scum that's not just hunters, so it's nice to see creature lists kind of coming up. Creatures have a lot of support already in the game, and I think this just gives them an extra little boost. Also, I like just that the Nexu is also kind of like an Imperial Assault only thing, like you only see it. It's not in any of the other games, so I really like that a lot. All right, I think we are down to the last coup de grace.
And the most important.
We saved the best for last.
That's right.
Boba Fett's. So let's talk about Boba Fett, and then I think we're going to have to wrap this one up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at Boba Fett's original card here. 13 points, like you said, came out in Wave 2. He's always been super tanky because of the static buffs, the 12 health. He is very difficult to kill. He also used to have Recover, but he just didn't hit hard. He didn't hit often, even though he was very fast, and he had 2 abilities that kind of didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about working with Daniel Taylor, and you guys came up with this really cool, sweet, kind of a toolbox, basically. And that's what he feels like now. He feels like a toolbox. So we gave him that surge for +2 all the time. Doesn't have to haggle for it. And you guys gave him a rainbow dice on his 3 attack dice because the yellow dice kind of sucky, right? So blue, blue, green if you need accuracy, blue, red, green if you need damage, blue, green, green if you need surges. And now we've got this cool thing where you've got 3 different abilities. You can spend 3 movement points to do any of them once per round. Let's go through them. Wrist Rocket is you choose a figure in your line of sight within 3 spaces and roll a red die. So basically slam within 3 spaces without the push. Wrist Flamethrower is kind of like Taros Flamethrower, right? Choose a space within 2 spaces, and then all the figures, each other figure, so not Boba Fett, but it can hit friendlies, suffers a strain and becomes weakened. And then Weaponized Stim is really cool. You choose a figure within 1 space, so you can choose himself or an adjacent figure. Remove a condition, can be harmful or beneficial, or it gains a power token of your choice. So that's really cool because he can you run up to somebody and gank them and take their focus away.
Yep.
Or he can remove his
own stun.
Right, because you can move while you're stunned. You can take a move action while you're stunned, spend half the movement points you got to remove it, and then you have 3 more movement points to spend to move around or do any of his other abilities. And he can do all of these abilities while he's stunned no matter what. So I think this is really cool. I love what you guys did with the figure, but I think there's some... We were talking about it earlier on Slack today. There's some good points to be made that he might still be just a little too expensive.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you brought up in Slack was dropping him to 12, and I think that's an acceptable approach to it. I think where and kind of referencing back to that conversation, I know Daniel said that he wants Boba to not be another IG-88. He wants Boba to feel like Darth Vader. He wants Boba to be worth 13. And so, and that, because if you have 12 points, you could put in either or. And I think what Daniel wants is for folks to choose Boba Fett at 13 because he is 13. He is the 13 figure for the Mercs.
Yeah.
We have gotten a ton of feedback. Everybody is playing him because everybody wants him to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And we are so appreciative of everybody's feedback. Even the folks that are like, "Oh man, this whole movement point thing is just stupid." Okay, cool. I understand that, and then we listen to why they feel that way, and see if there's anything that we can see if going an opposite direction would be valid. Right now, we like the movement point ability. The one thing that we're hearing consistently is that the amount of movement points spent for some of these abilities limits his ability to get away. It limits his mobility. And so we are considering dropping wrist rocket and wrist flamethrower thrower to have it spend 2 movement points instead of 3.
Hmm.
And so the idea there would be now you have, Boba can have 4 movement points to get around a corner, shoot, do one of those things, and then get back.
Interesting. I feel I mean we talked about it on the Slack, and I think I liked what you had said about you don't want him to just be a green Darth Vader or something like that, where you don't want him to be like interchangeable, because
Yeah,
you can run him in an Imperial list at for +1 point basically with
mm-hmm.
Temporary Alliance.
Right,
And so if he was 12, you could bring him in at 13. Right now he costs 14 to bring into the Empire, so he'd be
right.
more than Vader. And that
But
be,
my argument to that, and I didn't get a chance to give you this on the Slack,
oh yeah,
was um, he synergizes with the jets in Imperials so much better than Vader that he almost is worth 14 to bring him in and run vehicle cards with all those jets.
sure.
I would. That's one thing that I am looking forward to testing a little bit later this season is bringing him in to the Imperials and running 2 sets of jets, and just running all over everybody, throwing down shared experience all the time when a jet gets popped, and focusing up Boba, and and just seeing how much anguish I can cause.
I think there's still that perception barrier though of like you look at your list builder and you're saying, I have a 14-point hole. Do I bring Boba or do I bring Vader plus
Mhm.
a 1 point upgrade like Rule by Fear or extra armor? And I
Right,
think it's
right.
really hard to get over that barrier. But I think I like what he is doing now. I think like I honestly think he's pretty good at where you guys have him on the text and the stats. I just think he needs to come down a point, and then he should feel different from Vader. Vader is like a moving mountain, right? He like just
Hmm.
moves into you and just starts destroying you and soaking, being a damage sponge. Whereas Boba should feel different. He should feel like he needs to be a little more cagey and use the mobility. But if he's get in a good position where he doesn't need to use his movement points to escape, then he can start messing you up with these cool toolbox abilities. So I really like the design. I haven't had a chance to play him or see him on the table. Although I am very afraid if you guys make him better of what Daniel Taylor will do with this figure, because I know he's a
I have
huge fan
I
of
have
Boba.
I have already witnessed Daniel Taylor manipulating Boba Fett in last week's testing match. I watched him play Mark Nelly, and it was really impressive. Uh, and Mark did a really good job of locking down Boba with his Nexus and preventing movement and stuff. And Daniel got every ounce of the 13 points out of Boba. Mark had to overcommit to get Boba's 13, and it
Mm,
swung the game.
yep, and
I mean,
he's
it
not.
was it was really good.
And as he is 13 health with +1 block, +1 evade, that is a tough nut to crack already.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, if you throw him out in the open and let him tank a bunch of shots, he'll go down, maybe. But if anybody's good enough to like pop him out, take a shot, pop him back, like
Hmm.
and then you have to go dig him out of a hole,
Hmm.
it sounds awful, and I'm sure he's going to be amazing on the table. So, um, Yeah, I think 1 point reduction would be a good spot for him, but I'm interested to see what you guys do with him.
And that may be the direction that we go. We are constantly evaluating everybody's feedback. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to give feedback either through the Slack channel or before, I really encourage you to go to the website, ia-continuityproject.com. We have a link there to our survey, our season 2 playtesting form or survey. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. You go through and put in some information. We ask a couple questions about what you think about Boba, even if you haven't played him or not. We just want as much input as we can get from the community, and everyone's voice matters.
Absolutely. And you guys have the testing league going on for season 2. Are you guys still taking signups for that, or people have to wait?
That has been locked down for the rest of this month, but we will be starting up another testing league at the either end of September or early October. It'll be another 5-week league or 5 or 6 week league. So be looking for announcements for that, and we would love to have you for that. In the meantime, if you are looking for games to test IACP and you want to do it online on Vassal, if you're not already a members of the Zion's Finest Slack community, you can join it. Details on that is also on the IACP website. And there is a looking for game channel there that you can find just about anybody at most times willing to play a game with you. So you don't have to be a member of the testing league to test. You can bring in your friends locally and print out the cards. We have a really nice PDF now that you can use to print on, even like on cardstock, to use those cards. Speaking of which, did you want to go over the rest of the command cards before we finish this?
Yeah, let's talk about the command cards real quick. So let's see. Oh, and then I forgot to talk about Boba has a new command card that I see on the spread here. So let's talk about Boba. His new card. So Mandalorian Tactics is garbage. Nobody uses that. Although you can still use it in your deck, right? So now Boba has 2 cards.
If you really want to, you can still use it.
All right, but he has a new card used during your activation to perform a move. So it's a free move action. During this activation, when the first health figure is defeated, its player loses 2 victory points. So that's really cool. It's very mean.
And we wanted this card to enable his abilities that cost movement points. Yep. And we also wanted him to feel like if you had this, if your opponent may have this card, that Boba could be anywhere on the map. Yeah. Anywhere.
Yeah, and when Boba got spoiled, like my mind instantly went to like all the command cards that give you like 3 movement points. Hit and run, opportunistic. Like worth every credit. Like there's so many ways to get movement points on these kind of cards that are like a little underplayed by people who are mostly focused on the hunter cards that spike damage. So, but he can play those too because he's a freaking hunter. So
that's right.
So let's see the command cards. Let's talk about them. Are there anything else? So on the lam, for those who don't know, was changed for IACP. Now it's before the attacker applies. Oh no, excuse me. When attack targeting you is declared. So before it happens. I feel like it's not that much different because it's the attacker still plays all their when you declare an attack cards. So like what is it? The one that focuses you and +1 damage.
Primary target,
element of surprise. On the lam still beats all of those. On the lam never used to beat stuff like assassinate. That was while you're attacking because it was before modifiers. It still gets rid of focus tokens. You guys originally had a custom timing window for it, so it wouldn't do all that stuff, but the community pushed back, right?
Yeah, the biggest complaint about our custom timing window, which was essentially before the attacker could play any cards, you play this card. Yeah. The big pushback was for people who play Han Solo and smuggler boxes. they need to have on the lam be able to play mind games with your opponent. They need their opponents to be worried about, okay, if I play this card and this card and this card, I might lose it for on the lam. That increases Han's defense, at least a psychological defense, a bit. And it's something that they enjoyed, and they didn't want that taken away from them. And so we listened, and so the thing that we felt like would be a good compromise was taking away on the lamb's ability to wait for a die roll and see if you dodge out of it, and then you don't have to play on the lam. No, you're going to have to commit to on the lam if you want on the lam to play.
Okay, so that's kind of the big thing, is you get to see what the dice look like. Although, honestly, like, so many figures now will just hit you for a ton of damage no matter what they roll, that it doesn't... When I've played against this and with this card, it hasn't really felt that much different. So, but it is a small change and a meaningful one. So, another change was Assassinate was changed. And these are all from Season 1. We're just kind of going over these. This one feels meaningful because you can no longer stack Assassinate with any other attack modifying cards. So you can't Element of Surprise, you can't Primary Target, you can't Positioning Advantage, anything like that. Assassinate has to be the only card you play. You can't even Celebrate, which I think is one of the bigger changes, actually, because Assassinate into Celebration was such a big swing. So I really like the change you guys made to Assassinate. Some people have said it doesn't feel that much different, but it's not going to feel different when it's... And this is another thing I like. It actually doesn't hurt, Rangers as much, because when you have 3 Rangers attacking you, the fact that one of them has to play Assassinate and the other 2 just play all the other cards, it's not going to feel different. But it hurts Scum a lot more, because when Onar can't play Assassinate on top of 2 or 3 other cards, that's when it changes things a lot. So
right, yeah, and that's the thing. The hunters with 1 attack per activation, that's where this nerf is applied. So you can't just tools, heightened reflex, Assassinate with somebody like Hondo or Vento, or Greedo. Yeah. So that you can still be able to use these cards across an activation that has multiple attacks, like IG-88. You're still getting that damage output. You're just spreading it across 2 attacks. And you're giving the opponent another chance to roll a die and potentially have a better defensive result.
Yep. And you guys have this nice table here that explains all the cards and how they interact with the new Assassinate. So that's great. We talked about Deflection. We talked about Garkon, Knowledge and Defense. I think that was it. That was it. Okay.
Well, we have been extensive, and I thank you so much for your time for that. I really appreciate you going all in on this.
I know it's dark here, and I can't get to the light switch, so I'm like sitting in the dark because I had the window open, but the sun went down. But yeah, thank you for talking with me about this. The ICP has been really great for the community and for the game. So thank you guys for doing it and managing it. And we got links in the description. Go check out IACP, the IA-continuity.com.
Continuityproject.com.
IA-continuityproject.com. Yep. We'll put links in the description. All right. Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Chris?
Noah, I really appreciate you, expressing your love for the game. Even though we all know that, right now, FFG is just not going to have anything to do with it. It's folks like you that help inspire me to want to spend my time, making the game better and making people want to enjoy this game. And, I already get something out of it pretending to be a game designer for all this. But the fact that you enjoy it and you tell me that you enjoy it and that you're willing to share your love and passion for it, it just inspires me too. And so thank you so much for having me on and wanting to do this.
Awesome. All right, Chris, we will talk to you maybe some other time, and everybody go play some games.
Yes. Look for me on Vassal. I usually have CN Emmick as my username, and Like I said, go to the website, get on Zion's Finest Slack. Let's keep playing.
Yep. All right. Good night. Signing off.